Okay, hey people, for all of you who are going to be gone or have been absent on Thursday and Friday of this week, or if you're going to be gone Monday, Tuesday of this week, there's going to be two kind of parts to this recording right here that I will push out to you if you were absent Thursday, Friday, or Monday, Tuesday. So if you need to fast forward to the Monday, Tuesday part, then just do that when we start the DBQ. But right now we are going to start off by talking about the demographic transition model, which is what we did Thursday and Friday in class this week. And so I'll run you through all of the things, the notes that we did, and the activity for that. And then on Monday and Tuesday we will be taking our unit quiz. So if you are absent, this is important. If you are absent on Monday or Tuesday of next week, you need to schedule a time to come take your unit quiz with me next week during power lunch or after school. So you need to be in contact with me about that. And then we're going to start the one child policy DBQ. And so I'll start explaining that later on in this video. Okay, so we started out today by talking about just a little warm-up review of population pyramids that we did earlier in the week. And so we looked at this funny-looking population pyramid. It looks really kind of weird and wonky. It looks uneven for sure. You can see that there are way more males than there are females. Like way more males, right, instead of females. And so we kind of talked about why this would be. I didn't have the country up there on the screen, so we were guessing about why there was such a big gender imbalance, right? Why were there so many more males than there were females? And so a lot of people said, well, maybe boys were favored over girls. And then I also drew our attention to the elderly population up here. There's not a whole lot of old people, and there's not a whole lot of young people, but there are a ton of people in this working population, especially for the guys. And so this population pyramid is actually the population pyramid for the UAE, which is in the Middle East. And we have already drawn this on our first sketch map. So the UAE has a lot of oil, and so they are a MDC country, and so this population pyramid is very weird for it to be an MDC country. But if you think about it, it makes sense because there's a lot of oil in the UAE, so that means there's a lot of jobs. And so most of the people, I've read somewhere that upwards of 90% of the UAE's population is actually not from the UAE. They are from other countries, and people will migrate to the UAE to have a job. And so sometimes, or most of the time, they will go there, work on an oil rig, or have some kind of job in the oil industry, and then they will oftentimes send home money back to their families in whatever country that they came from. So most of the people who are living in the UAE are not actually UAE nationals. They weren't born and raised there. They have just migrated there. And most of the time when migrants will move in the Middle Ages for jobs, typically those are males, which is why all of these middle-aged people, especially guys, have moved to the UAE. Okay, and then once they end working, they reach retirement age, you can see that most of those people are going to move back to wherever they came from, okay, which is why there's not as many people here in our top stage of the population pyramid. Okay, so that is just a little quick review of the population pyramids that we did the other day, and I'll kind of relate how the pyramids will tie into the DTM, which is what we're about to talk about. Okay, so I'm sending you this file, this presentation, and so whenever you come to this slide, you need to pause this video and you need to go watch that video right there. Okay, so we're going to talk about the demographic transition model, and you need to watch that video. So you'll click on that link from the PowerPoint slide and watch that quick video, and then come back to my video and we will get back to our notes. Okay, so on the handout page that I gave you, it says the demographic transition model at the very top. So you hopefully have just watched that video to kind of understand what happens. So we will go through this very quickly, but we'll talk about each stage, and you need to read through the bottom part, the couple of paragraphs at the bottom that explains each of the stages. But as you can see in stage 1, we have a high birth rate and a high death rate, okay? And so that means our total population is going to be very low. So things like, like war, famine, disease, that's what's going to keep our death rate very high. But you also have high birth rates here, which is our yellow line. So lots of people are having a lot of babies. The population here is very young. You have a lot of young people here because a lot of people are not living very long. And you also have to have a lot of kids because maybe some of these kids aren't even going to make it to adulthood. So that's why you have a lot of kids. The population structure is very young. And so the big thing here is that there are no countries in this stage today, okay? This is very important, okay? You need to know that. So there aren't any full countries that are in stage 1. There are maybe some rural areas or very isolated areas that might have not been touched really by urbanization or anything, industrialization, and so they might be stuck in stage 1. But for the most part, everybody has at least gone into stage 2 a little bit. So I want you to read the stage 2 paragraph right there. And the big thing about stage 2 is that we have medicine here. All right, so this is the big difference here. And so with medicine, just the introduction to medicine, we see our death rate go way down, okay? That's the big difference here, is that our death rate is decreasing fast, okay? But our birth rate still remains high. So you have all of this area in here that's going to change. If you still keep having a lot of babies, but now your death rate is going down, then that means your total population is going way up right here, okay? So your total population is now increasing because you have that huge gap in between the birth rate and the death rate. In stage 2, you still have a lot of kids because typically you need kids to work on the farms, all right? These are your LDC countries, okay? So they're not super developed yet. They do have medicine, which is why the death rate is dropping. But you still typically have to have a lot of kids because that is they help with workers. So they are assets in stage 2, okay? So our population structure is young. You have a young structure here, and our population pyramid, therefore, is going to look like a triangle, okay? Most of your people are young, okay? But this also means that for the future of our country, it is going to experience rapid growth in the future because those kids are going to grow up and then they're going to keep having kids, and so it's going to grow very fast, okay? All right, so stage 3. Stage 3 countries, our statistics look a little bit different. So in stage 3, our death rate is now, it's still decreasing, but it's not as dramatic as it was in stage 2, okay? So starting to slow down. The big difference here becomes the birth rate. Our birth rate right here is really starting to come down here, okay? So you have the birth rate is decreasing. So we have to think about why the birth rate would be decreasing. And that's going to be because industrialization hits, okay? So this is the big thing for stage 3 is when you industrialize, you are moving to the cities, right? You have urbanization. People are moving to the cities for factory jobs. And so with that, people are going to choose to not have as many kids because now kids are becoming more expensive to take care of since they can't work on the farm anymore since we're living in the cities and they can't necessarily work in the factories. It becomes more expensive to have kids. And so this is when you start to see women partaking more in jobs and having a little bit more education. And so with that, the birth rate, our yellow line, is going way down here, okay? And so when that happens, then our total population is going to continue to grow, just not as fast as it was in stage 2, okay? You can see towards the end of stage 3, it's kind of starting to slow down, all right? So our population structure here, our structure is that it looks like we have a lot of people in our middle age range because now a lot of people are working, but they're going to be towards the younger end, okay? So the bottom part of our pyramid is going to start stabling off like we talked about the other day. And then it's going to kind of bulge a little bit and then come back up, okay? So it kind of looks like, I don't know, an onion or a weird Christmas ornament or something like that. So most of our people are working class, but younger, on the younger side, okay? And so these countries are typical of newly industrialized countries since those are the countries going through industrialization. Okay, so factory jobs, younger population, and industrialization, urbanization is huge here, okay? So then if we are looking at stage 4 is going to be post-industrialism, okay? So this means that we have gone through industrialization, and so this is the goal, okay? So we have good healthcare, good education, good job opportunities, and so with that, our birth rate is finally starting to stable out here, okay? So our birth rate is starting to stable, our death rate is starting to stable out, and so we have very low birth and death rates, okay? This is good. This is the goal here, okay? I'm going to write hashtag goals because this is where every country should want to be, okay? This is the best spot to be in. You have low birth rates, you have low death rates, which means you have a stabilizing total population. It's still growing just slightly, but it's not growing too fast and it's not growing too slow. And so that's the goal here. This is what we want. Children here become a liability. Think about how many or all the stuff that it takes to make you be alive, really, right? Like if you think about it, you require food and clothing and housing, and in a few years you'll need a car, and if you have braces, that's expensive, and all of these other things, doctor's visits, right? All of these things are really expensive, and so now people are choosing to decide if they want to have kids, or they might wait longer to have kids. The big idea here is that kids are now a liability instead of an asset, where in stage 2 they were needed to work. Now kids aren't needed as much, and so that's why our birth rate is low, and also our death rate is low because we have the best healthcare and medicine out of all of these stages, okay? These are countries that are MDCs. Okay, this is the goal here, all right? This is where you want to be. Our population pyramid is going to be, our structure, I guess I should say, is going to be mostly middle age or working class, or towards the upper end, which is where you want your population to be. You want to have a solid working class, and stage 4 is going to maybe look a little bit like that. You're going to have a lot of people at the top, okay? So that's the goal here. Stage 5 is a little bit tricky, because if we're looking at our statistics, our death rate is going to stay kind of the same, but the difference here now is that the birth rate has dropped below the death rate, which means there are more people dying than there are being born. And that clearly is a bad thing, because that's going to make our total population drop, right? If you have more people dying than being born, you're going to be declining. And so this is going to make our population pyramid look more like an upside down triangle. It gets tricky here because you might think that this is typical of a bad country, but these are actually happening. This stage is actually happening in MDC countries too. Okay, so they have the best healthcare because lots of the people are old, right? So you know that people are living a long time. It's just that people are choosing not to have as many kids for whatever reason that may be. And so this is happening in Japan right now is a good example of this. And so they have things like they're called pro-natalist policies, which encourages people to have babies, so that way that their future population will have more people working. Because right now in stage 5, if we are an upside down triangle, most of our people are very old, right? And so in the future, if there's not as many kids down at the bottom here, then that means there's not going to be as many workers one day. And that becomes a problem, because then who is going to take care of all of the jobs, of the government, of the economy? Who's going to take care of the old people? It just puts a really big strain on the working population in the future. And so places like Japan have recognized this, and so they have pro-natalist policies to encourage people to have kids, where they will give women more time for maternity leave, and so that will hopefully encourage people to have kids. And then another thing is they will include childcare in a lot of companies now, so that way if before, if people were choosing not to have kids because they were worried about paying for daycare or a babysitter during the day if they thought that was too expensive, and that was why they weren't having kids. Now they have companies that include daycare, so hopefully that will encourage people to have kids too. Okay, so stage 5 is potentially bad, but it does happen in MDC countries, and so there are a few countries like that in the world today. This slide shows you what specifically a pyramid will look like. Italy is also like this in stage 5 as well. Their population is declining. So we just kind of talked about that on the last slide. Okay, so stage 5 is declining. Last thing we need to talk about, here are actual pyramids. This is good because my pyramid sucked. So look at those pyramids. Those are pyramids for stages 2, 3, 4, and 5. But you might be wondering where the population pyramid is for stage 1. But remember, there is no country there today. So that's why there's no population pyramid, okay? The Industrial Revolution is really important, all right? That is what is going to push a country through the stages. All right, so before the Industrial Revolution, pre-Industrial Revolution, pre-1800s, everybody in the world was in stage 1. All right, but then once the Industrial Revolution happens, that is what propels the countries to go through the different stages. So the first countries to have the Industrial Revolution, Great Britain, America, they hit stage 2 and then 3 and then 4 and then 5 way before everybody else, okay? So today we have countries that are all over the place in this model here, and then it also will vary how long it takes a country to move through each stage. Maybe a country goes through stage 2 really quickly and then hits industrialization in stage 3 and then slows down in stage 4. Or maybe they just blow past stage 4 and now they're declining. Okay, so they can move through the stages at different speeds. And so you need to know that as well. And then lastly, this question over here asks how stage 1 and stage 4 are similar and different. So if you look at stage 1, you have a very high birth rate and a high death rate, right? And in a low population. Well, stage 4 is completely opposite. Your birth and death rates are very low, and your total population is very high. All right, so that's how they're different. But for similarities, if you look at where the birth and the death rates are, you can see that they're pretty stable up here, okay? So while it's a bad thing to have high birth and death rates, at least it's stable, right? Look at our blue line down here. It's pretty stable, right? It's not experiencing many ups or downs right there. And then also in stage 4, you can see our line is pretty stable right here, right? Our birth and our death rate are stabling off, and then up at the top, our blue line is starting to stable out as well. All right, and so that's how they're similar, is because it's stable growth, whereas stage 2 and 3, you have big differences in the total growth there. Okay, so stage 1 and 4 are similar because they are stable growth. All right, so this is what I want you to do to show me that you actually understand what's going on. So on the back side of the handout of the notes that I gave you, I want you to draw out the stages like what was on the front side. So truly just draw out the stages. Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stages, okay? And so you'll draw that on the back side of your handout. You'll label the axis. Then I want you to look up all of these countries that are down here at the bottom of this chart, okay? You will click on the link that is up here. Woo, I'm drawing arrows. Click on that link or scan the QR code. From the PowerPoint, okay, the PowerPoint that I give you, open this up and you'll click on that link there, okay. It tells you to click on, you'll be able to scroll down and find all these different countries, and then when you click on, say, Japan, you'll go down and click on the People and Society tab, okay, and scroll down until you see the birth rate and the death rate, because that's what we're looking at with the DTM, is we're looking at the birth rate and the death rate, okay? So based on the numbers that the website gives you for all of these countries, you are going to just write in your chart where these different countries are going, okay? So you'll just write in your chart however you want to. You'll just write the names of the countries in the chart, okay? I will give you a hint. The U.S., I'm going to give you a hint. The U.S., the birth rate is 12 and the death rate is 8, okay? So that means the U.S. is going to go in stage 4, okay? So I will help you out with that. So if you are just totally lost and you don't know how to put each country in the chart, try to base it off of the U.S., okay? Our birth rate is 12 and our death rate is 8, and we are a stage 4 country, okay? That is ideal. That's the best place to be, is in stage 4, and that's where the U.S. is, okay? So click on that link, go through all these countries, and you should have 18 countries listed on the back of your chart. You're going to take a picture of both sides of this, and put this in your Google folder. It will be number 12. And then the very last thing, we drew pictures the other day in a class to kind of illustrate this transition, okay? And so if you want to work with a group, you can. But you are going to illustrate, okay, which means you're going to draw me pictures. Okay, I don't want you to write out this stuff. I want you to draw me a picture, so you're going to illustrate it, okay, of what it looks like for a country to go from a stage 2 country through stages 3, 4, and 5, okay? So I need 4 separate pictures. You can do this drawing, if you have a whiteboard, if you want to come in next week and do this on my whiteboards or my mini whiteboards or draw on my desk, any of that is fine. If you want to do it digitally, I don't care. But what I need is that I need a picture for stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, and stage 5. And what you are going to illustrate is the birth rate, the death rate, the population change, and the population structure. Okay, so the birth rate, things that you could draw to illustrate the birth rate is like babies, right? Things that you could illustrate the death rate is like skulls or people like with little X's over their eyes, right? Population change would be like the total population. So is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Is it stable? That's what you're illustrating. And then for the population structure, a lot of people were confused about this today. The population structure is is just your people. Okay, so do you have a lot of old people? Do you have young people? Do you have workers? Okay, and that's what you're going to illustrate. Okay, so I need these 4 things illustrated for the 4 stages. Okay, so there should be 16, 4 times 4 is 16, little images total. Okay, so you will take a picture of all of your little illustrations and put this on your Google folder as well. It will be entry number 13. Okay, here we go for day 2. So this is happening on Monday and Tuesday of next week if you are going to be gone. Or if I send this to you after Monday or Tuesday, okay? You guys will be missing the unit quiz, okay? So this box that I have up here, you don't need to miss, okay? So you need to get with me and schedule a time to come take your unit quiz at some point this week, okay? It will be open notes, so don't worry about it, but you do need to come in and take that, all right? Also, before you get started with any of this, again, you'll open up this PowerPoint that I have open and you will look at that video. This video is like 11 minutes long, but it gives you a really good rundown of the one-child policy, okay, which happened in China, all right, for like 35-ish years, and ended just a few years ago, actually, and so we're going to talk about this. It fits in well with our population unit because it definitely affected the population, the total population in China, okay? So watch that video and then come back to this video. All right, so also the handout that I gave you has the background essay for the DBQ, okay? So I want you to start off by reading the background article. It's just 1 page, but it gives you a good rundown there. And I also gave you 3 steps to do as well that you can see over here. I want you to put just a square around all of the time words that you see while you're reading. And then as you go through the paragraphs, if you come across a problem, it's going to explain some problems that China was facing, go ahead and like underline it maybe, or highlight it, put a P out in the margin for the problems. And then China came up with some solutions as well to fix those problems. And so maybe highlight that in a different color and put an S out in the margin beside the solutions. Okay, so read that article. And then when you're finished with that, you will flip over the page and there are 3 questions that you have to answer. Okay, it's going to ask you what the question is, and it gives you the question at the very bottom of the background article. Okay, it says the one-child policy, was it a good idea? Okay, so you're going to put that. And that's the question, okay? And then question 2 asks you to define any terms in there that you don't know. So if you still don't know what the one-child policy is, maybe go look it up and define it there for question 2. And then in question 3, I just want you to rewrite the question and put it in your own words, okay? So tell me how you would rewrite our question here, because that is what is guiding our entire little essay that we're going to write, okay? The next step to this is that you're going to pre-bucket, okay? So my buckets right here on this slide look like the buckets that are in your packet, okay? So the big idea here is if it was a, oh geez Louise, is if it was a good thing or if it was a bad thing, okay? So when you're reading the documents, you are just trying to figure out, was it a good thing or was it a bad thing, okay? So you're either going to take one of two routes. It's either going to be good or it's going to be bad. There's no right or wrong answer here. This is an opinion piece, okay? So you're telling me if it's good or bad. And then you'll read, as you're reading the documents, we need to come up with a reason 1, why it's good or bad, a reason number 2, why it's good or bad, and a reason number 3, why it's good or bad, okay? Basically, these are going to be our topics for our paragraphs, essentially, okay? So you need 3 different topics while you're reading the documents, okay? That's the big idea here. So this is the pre-bucketing process. This is kind of what, literally, this is what your bucket should look like. Okay, so I want you to write this inside of those buckets on the pre-bucketing section. Okay, so the next piece to this is that you're going to read the documents, okay? So while you're reading, I want you to think about what the main idea is of the article, okay, or of the chart or whatever it is that you're looking at. I want you to think about what the main idea is, okay? Is there a topic or a theme that you can pull from each article? Okay, I think there are 6 documents that you're going to look at, okay, and write that down. You are also going to answer the questions at the bottom of the documents, okay? So at the bottom of all 6 documents, there are questions. You can write them out or you can make a Google Doc in your folder, because this part is going to be number 14 on your Google folder, okay? So maybe it might just be easiest if you just type it out, okay? If you type out the questions and then answer them there, okay? So that way you know what the document is talking about, okay? So answer those questions. This will be the proof that I know that you have read through the documents while you are gone. If you want to work on this with a partner, you can, because there's a lot of questions there. But truly, again, I tell you, the big idea is that you can figure out the main idea, okay? Because as you're reading, the goal is to come up with 3 topics as to why you think the one-child policy was good or why you think it was bad. If you think it was good, as you're reading through those documents, you're trying to look for different reasons. You need 3 reasons as to why you think the policy was a good idea, okay? Or if you think that the policy was bad, as you're reading the documents, you're going to look for reasons why it was bad or reasons why it failed or problems that came about, okay? And you're going to come up with 3 different topics, okay? And so when you go back to the packet that I gave you, the last page of the packet has buckets and it has the chicken foot, okay? So that's what you see here on my screen, all right? So whatever buckets or whatever topics you choose to have, that's what you're going to put inside of those buckets. Okay, so I'm going to give you like an example, all right? So let's say in my essay, I'm trying to figure out if going to OSU is a good idea or if it is a bad idea. I clearly am going to say that going to OSU is a good idea, all right? So OSU, ew, why am I writing that in red? Of course I have to write it in orange, okay? Go Pokes, am I right? Okay, so OSU is a good thing, okay? So if I'm trying to figure out how to bucket, let's say that I just read 6 documents about OSU, okay? And I've decided that going to OSU is a good thing. And so maybe I was reading those articles or those documents, and I found that OSU feels like home, okay? So maybe that's my first topic. So that's going to be my first bucket. All right. And in my bucket, I am going to write down, oh, sorry, I shouldn't have written that one. Maybe documents A and B talk about how OSU feels like home. So maybe it's small, has a good culture, whatever it may be. Okay. But both documents A and B talk about how it feels like home. Okay. My second reason that OSU is a good thing, or to go to OSU would be good, is that they have a lot of different majors to choose from. So like what you're going to study, basically, okay? And let's say that documents D and F talk about all of the different majors that you could get from OSU, okay? And so my topic for my second paragraph is going to be lots of majors, and then the evidence that I'm going to be able to pull from that came from document D and document F, okay? And then my last topic for why OSU is a good thing is that the sports. Okay, the sports are so fun. All of the games are so much fun. So maybe document E talked about the sports. Okay, so that's just a quick example. Okay, so basically what you're doing as you read your China DB or your China One Child Policy DBQ articles, you are coming up with 3 reasons as to why it's good or why it was a bad thing, okay? And you're going to come up with 3 topics, and those are essentially going to be your topic paragraphs, okay? Your topics for each of your paragraphs, okay? Your body paragraphs. And then when you figure out these topics, you're going to go back and figure out which documents talk about your topics, okay? So there needs to be at least 2 documents in 2 buckets, and then if you only have 1 document in your last bucket, that's fine, okay? But at least 2 buckets have to have at least 2 documents, okay? So that's what it should look like on your bucket page. And then down at the bottom is where you're going to put everything into the chicken foot process, okay? So my example is going to say, going to OSU is a good decision because, okay, that's the start of my sentence, because it feels like home will be my first paragraph. Because it feels like home. There are many majors to choose from. And the sports are, what could we say? The sports are competitive. Okay, so that's my chicken foot. And then essentially, if I were to make that into a full sentence, that's going to be my thesis. Okay, so then your sentence starter for the DBQ is going to say, China's one child policy was either a good or bad. Wait, how is it worded? Was a good or bad idea because of y. Dot, 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 okay? And then you'll fill out the chicken foot part, okay? So you're either going to choose it is good or it is bad, okay? You're choosing one or the other. It cannot be both. You are choosing a stance here in this essay, okay? So it's either going to be good or it's going to be bad, all right? So China's one-child policy was a good idea because or a bad idea because, and then you're going to give me the 3 reasons that you listed for your buckets, okay? So that is my plan for Tuesday or for Monday, Tuesday. Hopefully we will get through all of this and get to this stopping point, okay? Let me know if you have questions and if you need to come into tutorials because you are confused or you don't remember this from middle school, because I know you've done this in middle school, okay? Then you need to get into tutorials and figure out when a time works best for us, okay? So we will be working on this DBQ for 3 full class periods. Hopefully we will get to this stopping point on Monday, Tuesday. That way the next day in class can be spent working on writing all of our paragraphs out. I'll give you an outline later next week. And then the last day can be spent for editing and submitting and all of that stuff, okay? So that's the plan. Let me know if you have questions.